Alrighty, welcome back to the build of the Camp Easy 5945 Teardrop camper. Today's the big day. Today we start building the hatch that covers the rear galley back here. I really look forward to this part of the build, really just to get it over with. Everything I've read on all the forums and I've watched on other YouTube videos, people talk like the rear galley's kind of tough for a number of reasons. We'll just jump into it and see how it goes. A lot of the ones that I've seen, looking on the YouTube videos and forums, the cabinet frames are actually dropped down 3 or 4 inches, and the rear galley covers the top of the cabinet frame. I'm doing mine a little different. I wanted the cabinets to be as high up as possible, so actually the top of the cabinet frame comes all the way up to the ceiling or the roof of the camper. So the hurricane hinge that's supposed to be here and it's not, I get this pink thing from the post office saying they tried to deliver it yesterday and nobody was home, and my wife was home all day yesterday, so I don't have the hinge today. I really wanted that hinge. Anyway, the hinge is going to be tied into the top of the cabinet frame and tied into the top of the galley hatch. So that's going to be a little different. I don't know what I'm going to run into there. I think it's going to be okay, but we'll see. And down here at the bottom, you know, I've only got about 1.5 inches of clearance between the bottom edge of the camper and the bottom edge of the cabinet frame. So I'll probably make my rails a little wide from, let's say, a few inches above the bottom and a few inches shy of the top, and then I'll narrow it down a little bit at the top and bottom to account for that. But all I know to do is just get started and let's see how it goes. Okay, I've got my full-size template clamped to the teardrop and just running my hand around the edge. I've verified that it's nice and flush and lined up. You know, I did a video a while back of some of my favorite tools on my camper build. I really should have included this full-size template as one of the tools, because that's what it's become. After I made it, it's become a gauge that I've used to make a lot of parts with. And I'd strongly encourage you, if you're building one of your own, to make you a full-size template of your sidewalls before you begin your construction. I think you'll find it pretty useful. I'm going to mark a vertical line on this template, and that should coincide with the vertical plane of the front of the cabinet face. Okay, with the vertical plane marked on the top, and really didn't have to do any measuring on the bottom because I already have a bottom side to the template anyway, so the bottom is the bottom. But with those lines marked off, let's go ahead and unclamp it and start tracing the profile on the 3/4 inch plywood. Okay, now that we have one of the ribs cut out and sanded down around the edge, I'm going to use it as a template just to trace out the rest of the ribs. Okay, I've got the 6 ribs cut out. I ended up switching from a jigsaw to a bandsaw about halfway through and ended up speeding things up quite a bit and made a smoother cut. And then I just sanded the wood on down to the pencil line. So it ended up doing a pretty good job. My original plan, I thought I would take 2 of these and laminate them, make it for the right side of the galley, take 2 and laminate them and put for the left side, and then put 3 across the middle. I believe I'm just going to put 2 across the middle. I have a 60-inch wide galley hatch, so that's still only going to be about 20 inches between them. That should be plenty enough. So now the next step will be to laminate the right and left sides with some, I'm using Tight Bond waterproof wood glue, and we'll glue and clamp these things. Okay, I'm going to mark the locations for the horizontal cross members that will join the ribs together. I'm just using one of these squares, and I'm marking a vertical line on those so that they will be in the same place on all the ribs. I'm going to use an 1.5 inch wide spar, so I'm just going to measure 1.5 inches on the top rib, and then I'm going to transfer that line down to the rest of the ribs so I can cut out a notch for my cross member. Okay, I've got the spars cut on the bandsaw, and I have them notched. These are just some scrap pieces of 3/4 inch by 1.5 inch pieces. I just had laying around. I just using those to check the fit of the notches. But those are all of the spars. I have 2 that are laminated and 2 that are not, and then I'll be cutting some longer pieces of these, about 5 foot long, on the table saw that will be the horizontal cross members for the hatch. So by the time you put some wood glue and screws or nails in that, that'll be a pretty strong joint. This is my first mock-up of the rear galley hatch. I still need to cut a couple more cross members, one for this notch and one for the notch down here. But I've got the top one cut, and I actually have the top and bottom already cut. I just don't have those part of the mock-up. But so this is the first time I get to see what it's going to look like and see what my clearances are going to be. Looks like I'll have about 1/4 inch between the top of the ribs and the top of the cabinets, and I'll have about that much between the bottom of the ribs and bottom of the cabinets. So seems to be working out okay. So the galley hatch, all but the bottom cross member, is glued and screwed in place. I've just got it temporarily clamped to the side walls with a 3/8 inch spacer in there on each side. But it looks like my clearances are going to work out okay. I have about 1/4 inch on the bottom between the cabinets and the hatch, and I think it's about 1/8 inch at the top. That'll probably get just a little bit better when I put the hinge on it. So I think it's going to be okay. I left a 3/8 inch gap between the hatch frame and the camper frame, and I believe when I put that flexible T-molding on the edges, it should just cover the wall frame of the camper where the seal's going to be. So it seems to be pretty sturdy. Of course it's clamped in place, it's going to be more sturdy, but even on the table unclamped, it seemed to be pretty sturdy. So I think it's going to be okay. Just a combination of waterproof wood glue and some screws. So we'll move on to the next step. Here I'm putting the sheeting on the hatch frame. I put some screws on either side of the table just to keep the frame from moving. I thought I was going to have to wet the plywood to help bend it around the frame, but I ended up not having to do that. I just clamped the middle of it, got everything lined up, and then glued and stapled with some 1/4-inch crown staples along one edge, and then just worked with clamps and glues and the stapler along the other edge. This ended up being way easier than I expected.